Hey everybody, good morning. It's Pete. Welcome to today's episode of Stocks for Breakfast. It is Friday, June 5th, 2020, and congratulations to everybody who's been taking some of the ideas and molding them into your own personal resources. I'm actually very touched by the comments and the emails that I've been getting. I'm super happy for your success. That's obviously the whole point of doing these videos, is to share my experience so that hopefully you can get to the point where you wake up every day and you expect to make money. That's a really exciting feeling. If you find these videos helpful, absolutely please click down and subscribe. And if you have any questions, definitely leave a comment or leave us a thumbs up. That would mean the world to me. I'd appreciate it. Today we're actually going to talk about some interesting things. I've been getting a lot of feedback about profit taking, and I think profit taking is an interesting topic because, you know, as I always say, you go through this curve where you start trading and you really have no idea what you're doing, and you're losing money at that point because everything's overwhelming. But then you start to get to a point where you start to realize some of the mistakes or some of the stuff that doesn't work, and you start to minimize that kind of stuff, which is really good trading. That really means that you care about long-term success. You're like, that doesn't work, stop that, that kind of thing. But then you come out the other side and you get to a point where you're not losing money anymore, but you're really not making any either. You're kind of in that phantom zone where trading's exciting, but you always feel super close, that you feel like you only need one thing. What's that one thing I'm missing? Today we're going to focus on a couple of less expensive stocks. I don't want to call them cheaper, but stocks in the $20 to $35, $37 range. Because number one, I think that it's a misconception, especially in today's market, that you need to trade these massively expensive stocks with wild volatility to see your account grow blazing fast. And that's just not the case, especially in today's algorithmic world. A lot of people give let's just call them the robots or the algorithms bad press, and they do have a function in the market. But here's the thing. Everybody focuses on, did they take you out by a penny on a bad trade? And you get like the stigma in your head. But what about when you're on the right side of a trade and you do a great job of finding the right ideas, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, we got to get some of that. And the algos start piling onto the trade in the direction of your idea. So shift your thinking a little bit there. They're not really the evil thing going on behind the curtain. Especially if you're holding trades over days. I mean, maybe on microseconds, I think they actually trade in milliseconds. It can be a little bit frustrating where you maybe buy and sell and you see it move very quickly. But if you're looking to buy on Monday and get out the following Monday, has nothing to do with your order. Trust me on that. But I will say this, if you're right on the trade, if you have a good idea and it's obvious, and a lot of people who own those algorithms see the same thing, they're going to pile on and push the stock in your favor. So even some of these $20 stocks, like one of the ones I've been talking about a lot lately, and hopefully you took advantage of it yesterday, had a very big move, 14.5% move in one day. So we're going to jump into that, but here's basically the theme of today's video. We're going to talk about setting up trades, and I should say identifying trades that have profit potential, that are worth tying up your capital and giving attention to, versus trades that really don't have that much more room to go, or stocks that are kind of stuck and you really don't want to get involved with them until they get out of being stuck, whether that's to the upside or to the downside. Like we actually talked about Roku a couple of days to the downside. And if and when those situations unfold where there is room to go, then what's the right price to get involved? So we're going to take a look at, actually I just threw Roku in there, so we're going to take a look at that. But I'm going to give you a little glimpse behind the curtain at the actual screen that I use during the day, the actual setup. And it's very important. Now, even if you're not day trading, if you're holding trades for days, weeks, and months, you can do the same kind of setup. You'll just adjust the time frames to longer time frames. So I'll show you what I mean now. So, of course, I'm talking about Penn, which has been a stock that we've just been all over since this area over here. So we're going to focus over here first. And this is not exactly talking about necessarily setting up your A+ trade, because there's a lot more factors that go into that. What it's talking about is we're going to give a quick lesson on identifying areas where that's, I'll call that's the right price. And until that's not the right price anymore, I'm not going to do anything. I want to see it get out of that. I want to see the market or the stock tip its hand, and then we jump on board. So this should be relatively easy for you to spot. So you can see over here is when it started to pop up in our radar. The activity level started to expand a little bit. The ranges, you can see the difference in the ranges here. Let me actually zoom that out a little bit. Tiny ranges over here, and you can start to see that we're starting to see some larger green candles, expansion in the daily range. And I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to set an alert over here. If we finally get through this level, and especially if it close through this level, that means something different. The price is now a different price. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Trading Places with Eddie Murphy, where they're in the limo, and whatever car it was, he said, Mr. Valentine has set the price. And that's essentially what's going on here. It broke out of that level. Now it had my attention. So your attention goes to something that is active, and now there's profit potential. So if you go over here to the weekly chart, and this is where we were talking about here, over here, you see that there is this price all the way up here, which was essentially 35, just below 35. I said, okay, we have profit potential up to 35. Now it should have my attention. As long as it stays above here, which was the right price, I want to be a buyer of the stock and look to trade it up to that level. Up to that level is what makes sense based on, and this is the key, don't make it complicated, keep it simple. That's the last place sellers had taken activity and held the stock there or pushed it down. Now, obviously, this is from the pandemic, so I went a little further back, and that was the price. So this entire time we were rallying and buying the stock up to that level, we said, okay, up to that level, it's worth accepting risk because I could see the profit potential. But then we kind of zoomed out over here, and we started to push up there, and now all of a sudden the profit potential diminished. So the trade became less of a great idea. And now we said, now let's wait and set alerts. Sorry, I had a mosquito on the screen. We had to wait for it to get through that level. So you can see over here, for a bunch of days in a row, again, as we called over here when we started to buy, it was a good, solid trading analysis that there was not good potential for new trades here because this is where sellers took charge. So now we had an alarm set for 34, 35. 35 was really the level, but you can see over here, intraday, this is the level at 34.50. So this level here is this long one here. Once that triggered, now we said, okay, we're in the clear. We should start looking for some new opportunities in this stock. And you can see that it actually exploded. Now we are looking at the stock potentially staying above this level, hopefully pausing for a few days, and then giving us another move through that. Now, here's a big thing. Typically speaking, not all the time, the general rule that I have, and again, that's why I don't know anybody, we got to talk in very general rules because I've never spoken to most of you, right? A real breakout follows through. So what do we want to see happen today? We want to see what we call well-bid candlesticks in order for us to have conviction in the next move higher. Because remember, every time that we're looking at this chart, it's going back a year, pandemic or not, it hasn't been able to stay above this level. So you need to go into the day and into the trade saying, okay, for me to feel comfortable holding this position, I need to see it be well bid, which means a higher high, a higher low, and a close above the previous high would be ideal. Okay. Another stock we're going to take a look at is CAR, which some of the guys and girls in our community just really took advantage of this over the last couple of weeks. Some people made their year. Actually, again, it's only a $20 stock at that point. So you can see here, and I'll actually draw the box so you guys and girls, I'm sorry, I keep saying you guys. So everybody can take a look and say, okay, that's the right price until it gets out of that area. I'm not going to get involved. I don't want to sell short the resistance. I just want to see it get out of that window. So if you recall over here in a previous video when it broke out, I said, now what I want to see is push through that level and pause, very similar to what we said we were looking at in PENN to happen now. And you can see that we actually had a really nice $10 run in just a few days. And some of the members in the community just really had an amazing week and a half in the stock, or week, I guess just say this week. But then you say to yourself, okay, how much more room is left in the stock? So again, if we go to the left and we see where the profit potential is, up here is the target that we were looking for. So a lot of people have been writing in and asking, where is the profit potential? How do I understand how to book my winners? Well, we didn't quite get up there yesterday, but the stock did remain well bid. We're seeing a little bit of profit taking in the stock. So now this is where you have to make a judgment call, very similar to what I did in Netflix in a trade last week, where I booked a $20 profit in one day as opposed to waiting and holding for the longer term move, because I'm like, you know what, $20 in one day, that doesn't stink, and I took it. Now you have to make a decision here. Do you hold it until it gets up to the target, or is a $10 profit in a week good for you? Only you could make that decision. If you have 2,000 shares, that's a $20,000 profit in a week. I don't know about you, but that pays the rent, right? The last one we're talking about is Roku on the other side. So actually, the point I want to drive home here is, again, as you start to move up to your perceived profit target, you have to now say to yourself, as it's at 30 and the profit potential, the maximum profit potential in this particular idea is 35. If it gets up to 31, 32, does the trade still make sense to take in relation to the profit potential? If it starts to become, you could make $2 to risk $2, then it's not worth it. So those are the kind of decisions you have to make to set up your best trade ideas. We kind of had the opposite situation in Roku here, where we were looking at this box here in Roku. Excuse me, these aren't exactly perfectly drawn, but you get the idea. Roku broke down while the market was strong, that's a relative weakness signal, and then bounced and held the area that it couldn't break through. And again, your analysis doesn't need to be complicated, but it needs to be consistent. That's the big thing. You need to be able to read the tape and say, I know exactly what I'm looking at. This is what I expect to happen next. And you can see that Roku sold off for 3 days in a row. And yesterday, interestingly, it had a rally, which was super good buying action for a stock that you want to, that you're only looking to sell short, because now you're expanding the distance between your profit target down here and where you could sell the stock up here short. So this rally in Roku ultimately ended up creating a roughly $6 move to the downside. And you can see we actually have some more room to go to the downside too. So I'll be looking at that on the short side too as well today. So I hope I answered some of the questions about how to set up a trade. But most importantly is understanding, if you look to the left and say, where's the last time buyers or sellers did something significant, you can generally come up with an idea that's your profit target. And as you start to climb up into those areas, you start to say to yourself, okay, I'm getting close. Do I need to squeeze every last penny out of it? Or like in the pen trade, it gets up to that area and you say to yourself, well, right now, this is where it stopped last time. I'm not going to put limits on what it could do, but I want to see what's going to happen at that level. And you see in pen, it went sideways for roughly a week before yesterday finally breaking through. And in the community, there was some really nice money being printed yesterday in the community, just on that one stock, a $30-something stock. And now we're going to look for some follow through today. So remember, whether it follows through or not, remember the last few times it got up to this level, it didn't. If it follows through, we're going to look for well-bid candlesticks. If it doesn't follow through, then we're going to want to see a pause for a few days at or above that level, very similar to what we saw in CAR when CAR punched through. So hope you enjoyed this video today. Hope we gave you some good ideas on how to set up your charts. And especially if you're not day trading, absolutely on the weekly time frames, you can go out to quarterly, monthly, and daily as well. Quarterly, monthly, weekly, and daily to set up the same kind of ideas for a little bit longer term trades. So I'm Pete Renzulli. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you have any questions, absolutely leave them below. Give me a thumbs up if you find them helpful, and please subscribe. That would mean everything. Have a great day, everybody, and have a nice weekend. Be safe.